Hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with this great audience of security professionals worldwide. This is a day I've been looking forward to for 3 years. Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes a category. And today, we're going to announce a product that will change and redefine cybersecurity validation forever. Today, we're introducing 3 revolutionary security validation products. The first one, an automated penetration testing product. The second, a revolutionary vulnerability assessment product. And the third, a risk-based remediation prioritization product. And here's the thing. These are not 3 separate products. This is one platform. And we are calling it Pantera. It is the brand new world of automated security validation. Before we go into Pantera, let's talk about the issue we're addressing. Let's talk about the reason so many security professionals don't sleep well at night. The problem is that we cannot answer the following questions confidently for all of our IT assets and services. 1, is my IT network prepared against the latest attacks and threats? 2, are my expensive security controls configured and working effectively? 3, am I remediating my most critical security gaps? Up until now, there was no real way to answer these questions on the spot with confidence. There was no real way to answer these questions at any given moment. And let me tell you why. For the past decade, we have all been focusing on assembling more technologies in order to better protect our infrastructure. Our focus and investment were about better, stronger, more advanced walls and controls. But the breaches kept happening. So we understood that we shouldn't place all of our chips on prevention, that we need more detection and response. So we focused on building security operation centers and acquiring security analytics technologies like SIEM, but the breaches kept happening. In fact, their frequency, severity, and damage are on the rise. The growing number of ransomware attacks alone clearly shows that we need to do something different. We need to change our way of thinking about the problem. Actually, when we look closely, the answer is right in front of us. We overlooked a key element, making sure our entire security stack actually works. Think about it. When it comes to security validation, nothing much has changed in the past 15 years. For a long time, vulnerability scanners have kept us busy with endless scanning and patching, but we've learned that they fail in pinpointing true risk. Today's scanners provide us with an overflow of inaccurate and partially false security vulnerability information. They simply lack the context. They are also not able to dynamically test our controls, privileges, and credential strength. Another incumbent method used to validate security is service-based penetration testing. But penetration testing is very much talent-dependent, involving third parties, and cannot be applied in a continuous way throughout the entire infrastructure. This means that penetration tests are, at the very best, an expensive snapshot in time of a portion of your infrastructure. Let's make a simple graph with a true threat axis and operational scalability axis. Vulnerability assessment can scale, but it is very far from the true threat. Penetration testing is more true to the threat. Still, it cannot scale. Well, we don't want to do either one of these things. We are making a leapfrog in both technology and approach that is far more true to the adversary's nature and can easily scale. This is Pantera. Imagine a single platform that with a click of a button unfolds your true current security exposure by emulating real-life attacks on all your cybersecurity layers, continuously. Imagine a single platform that can test everything: vulnerabilities, controls, data hygiene, network devices, IoT devices, cloud credentials, and privileges. You name it. Imagine a single platform that automatically generates a risk-based remediation roadmap that you can immediately put into action. Imagine. This is Pantera. Pantera is here to give this power to every enterprise in every vertical, every day of the year, and provide each of you the confidence to reduce cybersecurity risk and become attack ready. Now, I would like to invite our Chief Marketing Officer, Aviv Cohen, to tell us more about Pantera. Aviv?
Thank you, Amitai. Let me tell you more about Pantera and how it redefines security validation. Let's start with automation. Now, people are often surprised by the level of automation of this platform. It's 5 years ahead of any other security validation technology out there. It's almost like magic. It reminds people of the first time they drove a Tesla without hands on the wheel. Pantera does it all for you. All you need is to provide it with a target or an IP range, and then press test. Pantera will do the rest. Now, here's how. Pantera's brain performs multi-threaded ethical hacking, including all the penetration testing services, starting with asset discovery, onto reconnaissance, and then vulnerability assessment scanning. Then the best part. Pantera continues with passive and active ethical hacking. That would include sniffing, relay techniques, ethical malware injection, lateral movement, credential searching, privilege escalation, pivoting, and more. Now, with every bit of information credential discovered, Pantera recalculates its path and keeps going, using its vast and growing library of attack validation methods. Now, let me repeat that one more time. There is no playbook. Pantera recalculates its path with every bit of new information, just like a human pen tester. When it achieves a foothold on a compromised host, it immediately scans for additional credentials and vulnerabilities. Or when it reaches a dead end, Pantera adapts and immediately tries another approach or tool set. Pantera does all of this at machine speed. Now, we can safely say that the work of 3 pen testers for 3 weeks is done with Pantera in 3 hours. Now, this is unheard of. This is crazy. 3 hours. And oh, by the way, for operators and red teamers who want to have more control, you can switch gears from automatic to manual and have discrete control over the platform's actions. Now, the second aspect I want to talk about today is remediation prioritization. For starters, Pantera asks you to remediate only validated security gaps. That means the correlation between an existing vulnerability or security gap that has an existing exploit, that has no compensating control, and leading to a critical asset. This means goodbye to false positives. Pantera only points to true risk-bearing security gaps. In other words, Pantera identifies breach points, not just vulnerabilities. Then, once we have the list of our true security gaps, the next question is, what do we remediate first? The Pantera prioritization algorithm takes a very different approach than the CVSS scoring we know. By having visibility to the full attack vector, Pantera understands the adverse business potential of each security gap. For example, if Pantera reaches a credit card holder data environment, it assigns importance to the weaknesses that got it there, even if their CVSS score is medium or low. And as a result, Pantera prioritized the most cost-effective remediation steps first. It pinpoints true risk and enables surgical remediation for those quick wins. This means fixing the minimum required to cut the potential kill chain. Now, good news, all of this goodness is packaged within the first report you will ever love. This report is instantly generated at the end of each test run and provides actionable visibility to executives and decision makers on one hand, and cost-effective remediation to IT security staff on the other. It's a thing of beauty. What can I say, guys? So, two things to remember. One, Pantera is a fully automated security validation platform that increases the scope and speed of security testing by 3 orders of magnitude. Two, Pantera prioritizes remediation based on business impact and drives surgical remediation to reduce risk. Thank you. Now, to bring it back to today's burning issue, defending against ransomware and becoming ransomware attack ready, I'd like to call to the stage our Chief Product Officer, Ran Tamir.
Thank you, Aviv. So let's talk about ransomware. My name is Ran, and I run as a hobby. So people always like to joke that I run somewhere. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get down to dealing with this threat. Ransomware is unfortunately a good example of why adding more security tools for prevention and detection is not the goal. Why? Although we see continuous increase in security technology spend, we see an even stronger increase of successful breaches and ransomware attacks. This is far from being a contained problem. Why? Because of the asymmetry of the fight. The attacker needs to be successful only once. One misconfiguration, one critical vulnerability, one mistake to find the crack to get in. We, the defenders, need to be successful 100% of the time. You need to know what you don't know and stop accepting the weakest link. Most organizations are defensive in mind and focus on building higher walls to block attackers. We are missing the attacker perspective, how they think, what tools they use to bypass defenses. This leads to a grim picture. Prevention and detection only approach is failing, and the ransomware business is booming. Ransomware payouts are likely to exceed $20 billion by end of 2021. Ransomware attacks have more than doubled year over year. More than 50% of all cyber insurance claims account for ransomware. May's ransomware payouts average $420,000 each. So the only way to fight this is changing the mindset, continuously validating and using the right tools for finding and sealing the weakest link in our cyber defenses before the adversary's turn starts. The key here is automation, with the goal of becoming ransomware ready. How can we get there? Continuously testing your environment, emulating ransomware attacks as close to real operations, finding the cracks and improve defenses, improving readiness to be as ready to block real attacks. So the question we each need to ask ourselves is, am I ransomware ready? First, we need to examine the ransomware kill chain and to assume that the adversary is already inside your network. The kill chain flow looks like this, starting with initial access, establishing foothold, encrypt critical data, establish command and control, and eventually exfiltrate data. Here's a bit of a good news. Finally, I would like to announce the first ransomware emulation framework. It is a full ransomware operations sequence, and we picked the most active ransomware families in the wild. All the tactics, techniques, and procedures used are true to the real threat behavior and TTPs, but obviously with special consideration to not cause any damage. And every step of this ransomware emulation framework is mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Aside from finding security gaps, Pantera can challenge the prevention and detection systems to see if they can effectively detect and prevent ransomware attacks such as Maze, Ryuk, and others. This framework enables you to run ransomware attack scenarios that are harmless replicas of the real thing. This is the only way to continuously challenge your entire security stack. EDR, NDR, DLP, WAF, firewall, and so on. Make sure they are effective and also train your SOC team to respond and effectively contain real attacks. Let's validate our ability to prevent and detect the latest ransomware threats. Let's surgically remediate to stop attacks. And hopefully, let's sleep better at night. Before I ransomware, I would like to call our founder and CTO, Arik Lieberson, to tell us more about how we prepare for tomorrow. Arik, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Indeed, testing for today's ransomware is important. But what about tomorrow's ransomware? What about new types of malware and newfound vulnerabilities that are discovered? How do we test for those? When I founded Pantera 6 years ago, I had 3 guiding principles. First, penetration testing is the most true way of validating our IT resiliency. No scanning or simulation can replace the real thing. Also, these tests require a great deal of skill and cannot scale in the modern age if done only by humans. Finally, we need to see the full kill chain in order to contextualize and prioritize remediation by the business impact. These principles are even more true today in view of the increase in attack volume and sophistication. Well, Pantera embodies these principles. It is built to be ever advancing. We're constantly adding more tactics, techniques, and procedures of testing to Pantera, all compliant with the MITRE ATT&CK matrix. Let me share with you how this evergreen security validation machine is developed with a little peek under the hood. A cyber attack kill chain is made of many stages, from initial access all the way to command and control and exfiltration. Each of these stages is represented by an ever-growing library of tests within Pantera. Then, in runtime, Pantera tries all the possible combinations of these tests, amounting to millions and millions of variations. This is how the power of the machine gives us much better results than a human tester. So how do we develop these techniques? Some of these techniques are simple and known, but some of them require a great deal of research effort to implement in full, especially if you don't want their prevention and detection to be trivial. For example, when we want to test the endpoint protection systems, we challenge them against payloads that they have not seen before and are not yet signed and known by the industry. To do that, our research team builds payloads that would be invisible to behavioral analysis XDR systems, randomized binaries, and use advanced obfuscation techniques to avoid detection. The result? Pantera truly challenges the defense systems like an adversary. This is pretty high-end stuff. For example, when Microsoft DNS SIG-RET vulnerability appeared last year, we quickly developed a full kill chain and embedded it within Pantera. Another example is when COVID-19 started and work from home became commonplace. We developed and added to Pantera several techniques to test and exploit common VPN product vulnerabilities and configuration flaws. The same applies to different ransomware variants. We're adding more and more ransomware emulation tests to the platform every day. But here's the catch. All this magic and all this work isn't worth a thing if it harms the network or systems in any way. Safety is the most important principle for us, and a great deal of our energy goes towards developing safe payloads and testing techniques. Some test steps that might lead to denial of service or server outages are not performed unless explicit user permission is provided for every one of them. When introducing new techniques, we go through a series of tests in our lab and in the field on vast networks prior to general availability. And of course, above all of that, the user has full safety control over the test elements, including where to run, which techniques to use, the level of intrusiveness, timeouts, scoping guardrails, and privileges. It goes without saying that at any point in time, the test can be stopped and completely cleaned up. In summary, Pantera's mission is to validate your entire security stack, whether it is servers and workstations, applications or infrastructure, internet-facing or corporate assets, you name it, Pantera will test it. Effectively, Pantera answers these questions. Are my systems configured properly? Do I have exploitable vulnerabilities? Does my EDR system stop current threats? When you subscribe to Pantera, you know that you're testing for the attacks of today. But you also know you will be testing for the attacks of tomorrow. Thank you. And speaking of tomorrow, I'm happy to call our CEO, Amitai Ratzon, back to the stage.
So where do we go from here? Let's talk about the future. The bottom line, there are things that are outside of our control or available resources. But there are also many things we can do today to make the most of our existing technology stack and tune our defenses to optimal efficiency. With Pantera, each and every one of us can create a flywheel of perpetual improvement, cyber improvement. Validate, remediate, repeat. Validate, remediate, repeat.
Validate, remediate, repeat. Validate, remediate, repeat.
With Pantera, it is a new reality. Moving from discrete testing to continuous validation. From manual work to automated operations. From third-party dependency to self-sufficiency. From vulnerability backlogs to surgical remediation. To conclude, the last decade was all about prevention and detection. This coming decade is going to be about validation led by Pantera. Validation will make our security stacks effective. Validation will give us the assurance we need in our control validation. It will help us measure our risk and grow stronger with time. I'd like to invite the rest of you to join us with Pantera in making the world a safer cyber place, one test at a time. Thank you. I would like to end by thanking our customers, partners, employees, and live audience who got us up to this point. Thank you. And enjoy the rest of the Xposure event.